The downfall of Meghan Markle's Hollywood dream didn't arrive with a single shocking headline. It wasn't one scandal or one explosive confrontation. It began quietly, through small patterns most didn't notice until the collapse was already happening. In the first months of her California life, Meghan was received like royalty reborn. Hollywood saw her as a golden ticket, someone who could fuse British grandeur to an industry built on novelty and status. Invitations poured in. Paparazzi swarmed red carpets hoping for one glimpse of the Duchess. PR teams whispered that she might emerge as the next major power player, an A-list activist who combined screen presence with global celebrity. For a moment, it looked as though she had cracked the code no one else possessed, carrying the glamour of monarchy into the capital of spectacle. But while the flashbulbs gleamed, the foundation underneath was already showing cracks. Relationships that could have been lifelong alliances were treated like background props. People who could have been allies began to feel used, not valued. And in Hollywood, where loyalty and discretion are the only real currencies, that perception spreads quickly. The unraveling wasn't about one dramatic fallout. It was death by accumulation. A series of small choices that slowly alienated the very network she needed most. Hollywood presents itself as a world of limitless opportunity, yet insiders know it's actually a protective ecosystem. Trust is guarded, loyalty is remembered, and betrayal is punished in silence long before it is seen in public. Once you lose reputational currency, doors begin to close softly at first, until suddenly they slam. That's exactly what began to happen with Meghan. Insiders whispered that her approach to networking was too transactional, as if she collected names instead of building friendships. Former allies like Jessica Mulroney and Millie McIntosh reported feeling discarded when they no longer suited her brand. Dropped friendships became a pattern, fueling stories that she climbed to influence by stepping across others and then leaving them behind. When the Oprah interview aired, what Meghan may have envisioned as her declaration of independence sent a very different chill across Hollywood. Executives, actors, and famous power couples weren't thinking about Buckingham Palace. They were thinking about themselves. If Meghan was willing to air the deepest secrets of a thousand-year-old institution on primetime TV, what would stop her from doing the same to them? In an industry built on secrecy, on controlling image, this was a flashing red warning. The fear wasn't about monarchy, it was about betrayal. Quietly, one by one, industry giants began to step back. Invitations slowed. PR teams advised their clients to steer clear. At first it was subtle. Fewer photos, guest lists shuffled, plans rearranged. Then it escalated. Top agents began warning directly to avoid association. A-list clients were told not to be photographed with Meghan, no matter how casual the encounter. At celebrity events where Meghan appeared, some discreetly left the room to avoid overlap. No malicious conspiracy, just self-preservation. The irony was stark. Meghan once imagined herself as the glittering bridge between royalty and Hollywood, opening doors for both. But within a few short years, she wasn't the connector, she was the cautionary tale. The woman who mistook access for influence and who burned trust faster than she could create it. The speed of the shift still amazes industry veterans. In barely a handful of years, Meghan's narrative flipped completely. When she arrived, magazines celebrated her and Harry as Hollywood's new royal power couple. Journalists speculated about Blockbuster producing deals, high-profile collaborations, and potential billion-dollar brands. Now, those same outlets run stories about Meghan being shunned at premieres, excluded from guest lists, and quietly avoided by former allies. Her trajectory has become so sharp and so public that Hollywood coaches now use it as a cautionary case study, a textbook example presented to rising stars on how not to handle sudden fame and influence. From being celebrated as a disruptor, Meghan is now cited as a masterclass in professional self-destruction. The whispers became especially loud when her friendships with global figures imploded in the public eye. One of the most damaging? Her falling out with Victoria Beckham. Meghan reportedly accused Beckham of leaking personal stories to the press. To suggest that someone like Victoria, a woman with her own empire, married into another global dynasty, would risk her reputation by gossiping seemed both paranoid and insulting. The Beckhams didn't take kindly to the insinuation. They've since sided comfortably with William and Kate, cementing their distance from Meghan and Harry. For Hollywood elites, this was another lesson. Burn enough bridges, and those you alienate do not fade away. They find fortress-like alliances elsewhere. The same superficial approach was felt in other relationships. George and Amal Clooney, invited to Harry and Meghan's wedding without any genuine bond, quietly drifted. The entire connection had felt transactional, and Hollywood in particular can smell inauthenticity long before it surfaces. Few things make a celebrity circle run colder than the suspicion you are being used as set decoration. Then the business world followed the same path. Meghan and Harry's Netflix mega deal was splashed across headlines, touted as a prestige partnership worth nearly $100 million. But inside boardrooms, enthusiasm soured quickly. Projects struggled to generate organic buzz. Where others created watercooler moments, Meghan's content rarely lasted beyond launch week. One Netflix insider reportedly called her the highest maintenance, lowest yield talent we've ever worked with. It was a devastating assessment, and like most things in Hollywood, it spread in silence. First whispered, then repeated, then treated as collective wisdom. Worse still was Meghan's inability to accept criticism. Instead of adapting strategy, she began spinning conspiracies. Multiple sources described her conviction that her projects were deliberately sabotaged. At one point, she insisted Taylor Swift's engagement announcement with Travis Kelce was timed to overshadow her own lifestyle series launch. Insiders rolled their eyes. Taylor Swift doesn't need Meghan Markle in her scheduling calculations. To paint global stars as villains in her perceived plots simply reinforced the impression that Meghan was drifting into paranoia. And in Hollywood, paranoia cuts deeper than failure. Nobody wants to collaborate with someone who sees enemies in every shadow. Then came the biggest signal yet. Dolly Parton, the warmest collaborator in the entertainment business, politely refused to link with Meghan's brand. Dolly, famous for building bridges, said no. And when Dolly Parton refuses, the industry listens. That refusal was the final straw for many. If Meghan Markle couldn't maintain a positive connection with the universally beloved Dolly Parton, who could she possibly hope to work with? Meghan, however, reportedly spun even this into palace-style paranoia, convinced that Kate Middleton personally orchestrated Dolly's rejection. To Hollywood, it sounded delusional. The Duchess of Cambridge wasn't plotting behind the curtain of Nashville. Meghan's fixation only convinced more executives and stars to avoid her at all costs. And avoidance became visible. At premieres and galas, paparazzi shots tell consistent stories, celebrities subtly shifting position to avoid sharing a frame, groups rearranging themselves, journalists noting who sat opposite Meghan but not beside her. Her isolation is visible even in glittering rooms. It has become a spectacle of absence, and in Hollywood that absence can be as damaging as scandal. The deeper reality is harsher. Meghan has nothing left to leverage. Before royalty, she was a competent but modest television actress known to a small fan base from Suits. The Duchess title transformed her into a global symbol. But that title derived its power from the monarchy, not her own achievements. By severing ties with the royals and publicly attacking them, she weakened the only currency that made her valuable in the industry marketplace. Hollywood doesn't hire titles. It hires mystique, access, and enduring popularity. Without the glow of the crown, Meghan entered a brutally competitive celebrity lifestyle field, one already dominated by brighter stars with greater authenticity. The company she keeps now reflects the decline. Whereas she once brushed shoulders with celebrity giants, she now gravitates toward figures whose reputations are already troubled. Chrissy Teigen's involvement with Meghan's brand wasn't proof of star power, it was evidence of shrinking options. And when even the Kardashian family, whose empire thrives on spectacle, keep their distance, the message is unmissable. The risks outweigh the rewards. Inside corporate boardrooms, feedback is even grimmer. Executives describe meetings where Meghan refuses to accept shortfalls as her responsibility. Viewership slumps are attributed not to weak storytelling, but to conspiracies. She demands marketing resources equivalent to proven global icons, delivering shows that fade without chatter. To executives responsible for millions, this isn't just frustrating. It's untenable. Hollywood thrives on adaptability. Seasoned stars reinvent themselves. Those who last admit failure learn pivot. Meghan, however, doubles down. Every falling bridge becomes, in her mind, another enemy plot. Every lost ally is seen not as consequence, but as sabotage. This rigidity, paired with her personal reputation, created the deadliest combination in Hollywood: high risk, low reward. And so the pattern of exile solidified. Jessica Mulroney gone. Millie McIntosh cut off. Even Oprah, the ally who gave her the global stage, now maintains distance. In an industry that forgives small missteps, Meghan has repeated the same error so many times that even her former defenders see association as reputational suicide. The saddest element of Meghan Markle's Hollywood unraveling is its finality. Minor scandals fade in Los Angeles. Stars can reinvent themselves overnight. But what Hollywood never forgets are those who systematically burn bridges while clinging to superiority. Meghan's relentless attacks against the royal family closed off the mystique that once gave her traction. She no longer has the balance of palace access or global curiosity. That carefully built aura of royalty in Hollywood has evaporated, leaving her to compete in an already oversaturated lifestyle market. Her peers now are not the Beckhams or the Clooneys. They're influencers with more charisma, long-standing moguls with deeper networks, and entertainers whose charm feels accessible. Meghan's image, meanwhile, has curdled. What was once framed as an empowering break from tradition is now cast as a series of missteps, discarded allies, false accusations, paranoia, and excuses. This decline manifests everywhere. Industry veterans wield her name as shorthand in lectures to young stars. "Don't Meghan Markle yourself" has become a quip meaning. Don't think titles guarantee longevity. Don't confuse attention for influence. And don't attack the very institutions that gave you relevance. Photographs capture the outcome even more vividly. Meghan standing alone in ballrooms crowded with A-listers. Groups leaning away in frames. Smiles that don't reach her direction. Hollywood communicates its rejection visually, and the images are humiliating in their clarity. The troubling truth is that Meghan seems locked in this spiral. Instead of reflection, she doubles down on scapegoats. When Hollywood whispers that she's difficult, she answers with accusations of betrayal. When projects underperform, she points to sabotage. When even Dolly Parton refuses to engage, she blames royal conspiracy. For an industry based entirely on delicate egos and controlled images, this mindset is the final sin. No star, no studio, no label wants to partner with someone who cannot adapt, who frames natural failures as attacks, who drains trust from every circle entered. And so Meghan Markle's journey, once heralded as a new hybrid of stardom and monarchy, now serves as little more than a warning. The bridge she promised to build between Hollywood and royalty collapsed behind her, leaving her stranded between two worlds, embraced by neither. The royals? They march on, strengthened by global admiration and new alliances. Hollywood? It turns the page swiftly, but never forgets reputations that make collaboration dangerous. Meghan is left outside both circles, her image more isolated than ever. A woman who once imagined herself as Hollywood's ultimate power player now finds herself standing in the glittering rooms she once yearned for, but without allies, without support, and without the one thing she wanted most: influence. And in the entertainment industry, once you lose influence, you lose everything.